Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
The sound of praise for your Sunday morning.
The only one who could ever teach me.
Introducing Reverend A.R. Bernard of the Christian Cultural Center.
Was the son of a preacher man.
And Rabbi Joseph Paterson of Religion on the Line.
The only one who could ever teach me.
Now, here's the Rev and the Rabbi, where faith matters.
Good morning, I'm Rabbi Joseph Paterson.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And Reverend, today in New York City is Celebrate Israel, the Israel Day Parade. And so many will be participating, standing with Israel, especially during this time. It matters so much. So it is very heartening to see people of all faiths come together. I was telling some people the other day, the word "and" is so important. It's, the Orthodox and the conservative and the Reform and the Reconstruction and people and the conjunction, the connector. And I think all of us feel today we need "and" more than ever. And thank you, Rev, because you've always been there with us when it comes to support of the State of Israel.
Well, I am unapologetically who I am, a person of color. Grew up in the United States, born in Panama, because came to this country. And one of the things that I respect and appreciate, your unapologetic identification with your Jewish heritage and ethnicity and culture. I think that's what America should be about. The fact that we have the freedom to be who we are, to explore, to enjoy, to appreciate, and even share our cultural context. So,
and we can have disagreements. We can have different approaches, right? But at the end of the day, you have the right to disagree, but you don't have the right to denigrate. You don't have the right to destroy. And some of the discussions today have just degenerated into this ugly name-calling, the use of epithets that do not contribute anything. And you can't have a serious discussion with someone who wants to destroy you.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because it's on both sides of the aisle, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or in between. Unfortunately, the spirit of the times have people in a mindset that, we want everyone to be like us. So we want full conformity of the world to who we are and what we do, how we think, and how we live. And that's not what makes up humanity.
Yeah, you're entitled to my opinion, right? So I want to ask you a question. In the Middle Ages, there was a document known as an ethical will. And when you read many of these letters, parents would bequeath to their children values. And I remember seeing one that said the following: "My son, you're becoming a doctor, and I want you to recognize that you're there to help people. And if a poor person comes to you and cannot pay the fee, still treat the person." But it was a document replete with those kinds of values. And what we're saying is it wasn't just about leaving valuables, it was about leaving values.
Right. Personal values and beliefs, reflections on, what you thought was right and wrong, the importance of faith, integrity, compassion, all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And it was a non-legal document. It was a personal document.
Exactly.
That was passed on to the family. Yeah. What makes you think about that, Rabbi?
Because I was reading a book recently about the ethical will. And I said, my God, who speaks of this anymore? It was popular in the Middle Ages and probably in subsequent years, but today... But maybe we do it differently. Maybe we don't have an actual document, but we hope during our lives we demonstrate what the values need to be. So people learn by what they see not just by, reading some piece of paper. Years ago...
But isn't that a part of legacy?
Yeah, that's
part of your legacy, right?
Years ago, there was a rabbi, his name was Hillel Silverman. He was in Connecticut. And, we have a part of the prayer where we have the mourner's Kaddish, the recitation of this prayer, where we remember those who died. And Hillel writes in one of his articles that he mentioned the name of the living son who was there rather than the father who was deceased. He confused the names. And he felt terrible afterwards. He said to the gentleman, I am so sorry. I mentioned your name. I should have mentioned your dad's name, who's not living. And I mentioned your name, who, you are living. He says, Rabbi, you did me a favor. Because when I heard my name being mentioned during the memorial prayer, I thought to myself, who's going to say that prayer for me? And what legacy am I leaving my kids? What are they going to remember about me? He said it was a very defining. The rabbi was relieved because, he felt terrible. But, it's something that's very powerful. What are we leaving our kids?
Right. Right. And legacy is more than just material. There's a wonderful passage in the Hebrew scriptures, may I emphasize. It says in our English translation, it says, a good man, which is a man who lives a life submitted to the wisdom of his higher self. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So he understands that his actions not only affect, his children, but a generation to come, his children's children. And legacy is more than just material. Like I said, it's first spiritual. And I think that's so important, spirituality, because out of it comes our morality, our ethics that we pass on from one generation to another.
And don't we find that we often reflect on what would our parents say? What would they think of what we're about to do, say, whatever? But that imprint, that lasting imprint that we carry with us, in a sense, my father used to have an expression in Yiddish that the monument is not that which remains in the ground, it's the one that remains in the heart. That we walk with those monuments within us, thinking about our parents and what their reaction would be to who we are.
Yeah. And like I said, legacy is more than just material. It's first spiritual, because spirituality has to do with realizing that, we're part of something greater than ourselves. It speaks of our transcendence. It speaks of meaning and purpose, why we're here, what it means to be human, what it means to live in this world. These are questions that are so important, and each generation has to fight through the search to understand that for themselves. But I think the journey is helped a lot when it's passed on from one generation to another.
Somebody I know wrote an article years ago, The 10 Commandments of Raising Children. And then he had children. He said, I updated that article to the 10 Suggestions of Raising Children. And then as my kids get older, I stopped writing those kinds of articles. I wasn't sure exactly what worked. We have a guest coming up. We have Yuval Gideon, who is the consul for public diplomacy for the State of Israel, and he'll be with us shortly.
So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with more of the Rev and the Rabbi.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Patasnik, where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor, or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. micro-tabb.com.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Cadillac. When you have 4 new tires, every drive feels fresh. Right now, buy 3 select tires and get 1 for just $1 during the Cadillac Certified Service Fresh Start Tire event. Visit Cadillac.com/service offers or see dealer for full details. At participating U.S. GM dealers only. Highest or equal value tire will be $1. Offer ends 5/31/2025. Not available with other offers.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
Where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Patasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, we are honored to have with us Consul for Public Diplomacy for the State of Israel, Yuval Gideon. Consul, thank you so much for being with us.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me, and delighted to be with you two again.
Thank you. So we have seen the president now negotiating with Saudi Arabia, administration negotiating with Iran, the negotiation for the release of the American hostage Adnan Alexander. There have been all kinds of commentaries written that Israel was not part of any of the negotiations, and this makes them nervous. How do you respond to that?
Whereas, first of all, I honestly don't know. I'm not acquainted with the intimate channel between the president and the prime minister, so I wouldn't comment directly on that because I don't know what went through this channel and when and what's the nature. I will say that we realize that everything that's been done out of the deep partnership and the strategic alliance between the United States of America and Israel. This is not something new. It doesn't apply to a particular administration. It goes back decades because, A, we have similar values in societies, and we have to a great extent similar interests. And whereas sometimes we might differ on a particular issue or see otherwise the preferred way to move forward, by and large, I think the ally between Israel and America is strong, is solid, we're confident, we're grateful for it. So I think it's the overall context.
Yeah,
and again, I'm not referring to a particular update, yes or no, just because I'm not acquainted with it.
And there's a history. Mm-hmm. There's a history here of a strong relationship. This is not something that transpired overnight. And it was a history of a bipartisan relationship. So I think that...
And even more so, if I may,
sure.
The President of the United States of America is not just the President of the United States of America. He's the leader of the free world. Israel is part of the free world. Israel benefit and prosper from being part of the free world. We identified proudly as part of the free world. Hence, it's all within the family, kind of. And like in any family, sometimes we feel different about particular things, but overall, we feel close to each other because we're family.
Mm-hmm. Rev?
Counsel, your career includes roles as deputy ambassador to Ethiopia, Rwanda, Burundi, Finland, and Estonia. What has changed in terms of how the world interacts with each other, how nations interact with each other now compared to 10 years ago?
I think that we all feel the impact of the social media, the ability of each person, leaders included, but not leaders only, to reach out a whole variety of audiences that beforehand they could reach mostly through the official, let's say, middlemen, be it the government or the media. Now it's all more weak and all more personal. And people could affiliate over oceans and continents on things on common base that they feel they want to gather around. I could choose from tens of thousands of podcasts or radio shows or TV shows or an internet website that I want to take information from. And so the trouble today is not how to get information, rather than which information I choose not to follow. And which is more reliable, and it has gone even wilder now in the era which we're just entering of the AI and the deep fake and a lot of things which create the issue of can I trust my source to be much more crucial. So I think in that sense, relations between nations changed a lot because many of it does not go through the official channels, and governments, like people, have way more challenges in assessing the huge quantities of information that they got and take decisions upon.
Yeah, does that slow down your response to situations because you have to test the veracity of the information that you're getting before you can respond?
Well, luckily or not, depending on your point of view, technology have made substantial advancement in this period as well in the sense of our ability to process it. And now with the ability of AI to process it. A lot of information that once were crucial are less of important today, but a lot of information that once was not available is now available easily. So when I check into an airport and my picture is on, it's synchronized with pictures of me throughout the world in various occasions when my picture was taken. And I consent with that just by the mere fact that I agree to go through the process in the airport. And so there's new information that wasn't there once. So I think not necessarily responds slower, just the complexity of the ability to process the information. That's what has changed. Sometimes it's not slower at all. And also people expect individual as well as states to respond much quicker. 20, 30 years ago, you would have the daily conference, the briefing at the White House, and you wouldn't expect to get an answer if something happens 2 hours later. But now if something happened on the other side of the world, you would expect that you will text your contact person in the White House team and ask him to refer to that and not wait for tomorrow to have a response on the daily brief, right? So the expectation is to respond much more quicker as well.
One of the problems I find with social media is there are people who accept veracity without examination. They don't go to see if it's true. Whatever is said to them is true, and they begin to send that out to others, and you have that multiplying impact. How do we get people to just step back for a moment and question, is this an accurate source, an inaccurate source? Is this statement true, false? Not to have that Pavlovian reaction where, oh, look what was said. This is terrible.
I guess it goes back to education, to have proper disclosure at media outlets. Sometimes it goes through regulation, but you can't enforce everything through regulation. But having said that, I think it's also worthy to mention that whether we feel comfortable with it or not, many, if not most of the crucial decisions we make in life we don't do that after a thorough analysis of what's need to be done. It could be who we choose to be our partner. It could be who I vote to in the election day. It could be which car I will choose to buy. We'd like to think that's all very rational and fact-based, but many times it's just not the case. We just act emotionally from the place that feels right to us.
Yeah.
So it's not even about the truth. I'm sorry for cutting you off, Rabbi, but it's not even about the truth. It's about where your loyalties are placed, whether it's to some ideology or some political party.
Sure.
Truth becomes secondary, correct?
Yes, many times it's correct. And that, I say humbly, applies to many of us, if not all of us.
Yeah. Consul, I want to ask you something because much has been written about it. October 7th, we know, one of the most horrific days in the history of the Jewish people. Now people are talking about the Israeli response, and you hear the word proportionality. And I never understand what that means when someone is seeking to destroy you. What's a proportional response other than trying to prevent that person from destroying others with you?
That's a very good question. Now, aside from being the most horrible day for Jews since the Holocaust, October 7 was also one of the most heinous, barbaric terror action ever in modern era. So when you look at it, but also overall, and you speak about proportionality, it's very hard to define what is proportionality. Is it eye for eye? I mean, if they indiscriminately got into our cities, murdered babies, raped women, so proportional response would be that we will enter their cities, murder babies, rape women. That will be a proportional response, eye for eye. I'm not sure that's where people are aiming. So proportionality in the common way that's been seen in the international legal system is, do you take relevant certain measures that are necessary in order to make sure that you target the relevant terrorist or military people and that you prevent to the extent that possible harming uninvolved people.
Consul Yuval,
this criteria, I think we're doing the utmost and we're doing a fair job. Does it mean that uninvolved people never got hurt? No, of course not. Regrettably. But
who determines what is proportionate? Who determines what's proportionate?
Rev, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the segment here.
Oh, my goodness.
We'll have to have Consul Yuval Gideon, Consul for Public Diplomacy for the State of Israel. We got to have you back.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Bo. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Networks.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
Jif peanut butter. It's that Jiffing good. It doesn't really need advertising. So instead, enjoy the calming sounds of the ocean. Jif. Ooh, it's that Jiffing good. Get your Jif at Jif.com.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
Where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Patasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, we have with us today the 55th governor of the state of New York, always on standby, except at Newark Airport, and the Honorable David A. Paterson. Thank you, Governor.
Always good morning, Rabbi. Good morning, Reverend. It's great to be with both of you.
Good to have with us. Do me a favor, Rabbi. You've got to emphasize the. Okay? When you announce his name, it's the 55th governor.
Just call him
of
the
state of New York.
It
Okay?
sounds great.
THE. The.
It sounds
well,
great.
I tell you, he came in during a critical time and was given a total of, 22 minutes to get ready for this position?
Just about.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
He is a wonderful human. Why am I talking in the third person? You are a wonderful, human being. We're happy to have you. I wanted to ask you something. When you were governor, you've held some positions. Did you have a person in your administration that would say no to you, like, you can't do this? I mean, I find there are some leaders who are comfortable having that person who is the gatekeeper, and there are others who don't.
I had people under me who were candid. They would tell me exactly what they thought. But I also had people under me who didn't tell me things that I should have known. So, for instance, Reverend, when the morning that or it was in the afternoon, that day, March 10th of 2008, the Spitzer people, none of them came to work in Albany. They weren't in their offices. Now, they were on the second floor. That's, where the governor's offices are. My office as lieutenant governor was on the third floor, so I'd have no idea what was going on the second floor.
The lieutenant governor has an office?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. It's right next to the restroom. So some of my staff members noticed that nobody from Spitzer's office come to Albany today. So they start bothering him about it. And finally, I'm not sure, but one of the Spitzer people told one of my people, listen, the governor is probably going to have to resign today. He was caught with a prostitute. Don't tell the lieutenant governor. The governor will tell him himself, blah, blah, blah. And my staff decided to listen to Spitzer's staff, who had no authority over them. And so when it came out, what actually had happened, it was very difficult for me because it all came out at once. Whereas had I known how it was developing, I would have handled the situation differently. So yes, I had people who would tell me, no, there's no way, you can't do that. But I also had people who would think for me, because if they really thought as me, they would know, you work for the lieutenant governor, he's going to be governor in a few hours, you tell him, even if you swear him to secrecy. And that was, it happened a number of times. That was a big problem.
Why?
I think that I'm just going to respond to that, sure. Rabbi, because I think that one of the problems is that insecure leaders tend to be easily intimidated by competent subordinates. But mature leaders, secure leaders, they surround themselves with the best. They want to hear what's good and what's bad about their ideas, their proposals, their opinions. That, for me, is a sign of a secure leader. What say you, Governor?
Well, for instance, there was a gentleman who worked for me. He was very active in Long Island, and he came up with a plan for how to reduce not just the taxes, but the resources that people on Long Island had. And some of my other staff members, the budget people and that kind of thing, rejected what he was talking about. But we implemented it, and I think in the end everybody realized that he stood up for that point of view, which I didn't totally understand at first, but it was sustained. And I think you're absolutely right, Reverend. I've worked for people who were so insecure, you just had to be really careful with anything you said to them.
Right.
If they said, I'm not going to wear any clothes to work tomorrow. You would have to say to them, well, you can do that, but, it actually looks more interesting if at least you wear your underwear, because that way, it's a combination, But there really were people who I worked for who they didn't seem to be able to handle the authority that they had. And they discharged it by hurting people and insulting people.
So you can't really be fully successful, if you're immature, as the Rev says, or if you're afraid to take criticism, you're afraid to have someone that says, no, I know a mayor, I'm not going to mention the name of the mayor, but one day he said to his one of the trusted aides, that event we have at 12 o'clock, I'm not going. I'm just tired, I got other things to do, I'm not going. He said, Mayor, you're going. He says, no, I'm not. He says, Mayor, we'll get the car downstairs, you're going. And he ended up going. And he valued that person because that person was looking out for his best interest.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's what, I don't understand. I guess it's hard to overcome immaturity, but you're not going to serve the people properly if you don't have someone who says that's a bad idea.
In my case, there were people who had worked for me who were telling me to resign during this period in 2010 when I was being investigated. And honestly, if I thought it was going to come to anything, I would have resigned. But I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. I knew they couldn't have any evidence of me doing anything wrong. And so I hung in there. Now, at a certain point, I realized that the amount of time I was devoting to my own defense was taking away from the people of the state of New York. So I announced that I wasn't going to run for re-election. And that relieved all the pressure. And then I could go ahead and really, manage the budget the way I had the 2 years previously. There was only one situation. One legislator called up and said, you really should resign now because I'm worried about how the budget's going to pass. I said, well, I've got plenty of time. I could pass the budget and, defend myself in an investigation at the same time. So I already took some of the time off. And this person continued to argue with me. And I won't say their name over the air, but their initials were John Lou. And I thought it was about the most ignorant request I ever got in my life when I was governor.
Rev?
I'm just saying, it's important that you trust those you put under you to help shoulder the weight and responsibility of your leadership. But at the same time, there are occasions where you have to follow your gut. And, even if it's not understood or appreciated, you do what you have to do, what you feel deeply inside to do. So kudos to you, Governor, for understanding that and moving forward with that. But, if a leader is not secure in themselves, in their identity, in their capacity. I never forget, I was in D.C. at a breakfast for a new Supreme Court judge and who was being celebrated. And one of the guests got up and he was introduced and he said, I just want you to know that I've been at this for a while and I have 5 PhDs. And then he proceeded and he said, I brought them with me. And he introduced 5 of his staff members. See, that's the way you do it.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
the way you do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm jealous.
By the way, you didn't have as I remember, you did have access to a plane. It wasn't a Qatari plane, am I right?
No. And it wasn't given to me by a family. It was by the
Well, Rev, we want to ask about that.
People of the state of New
ask
York.
him, no.
The
What do
people
we
of the
say
state
to
of New
that?
York. It was the state plane that the governor used.
But what do we say to that, Governor? Because during the debate, right, with Hillary Clinton, President Trump rebuked Hillary for taking money from Qatar because they were supporters of terrorism. And here we have, him accepting a plane and a $5.5 billion golf course deal. How do we respond to that?
Well, it's funny you'd ask me because I'm going to Qatar shortly. So I'll be back here next Sunday and give you an answer on that, Reverend, because there's a business situation that I'm in. I've never been there before. It should be quite exciting.
Yeah. We're going to take a break here and come back with more.
Why, Rabbi? I'm just warming up.
Come back with the 55th governor of the state of New York, the Honorable David A. Paterson.
Absolutely. Stay tuned.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Patasnik, where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Vacations will never be the same. Welcome to the theme parks of Universal Orlando Resort. With spectacular hotels and more, Universal Orlando offers an entire week of vacation awesome. Visit universalorlando.com.
Clorox Sentiva smells like grapefruit. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
Okay, we could be here all day. Try Clorox Sentiva for a trusted clean with long-lasting freshness. Also available in lavender and coconut. Use as directed.
Experience a progressive lens engineered with AI from Essilor, powered by individual measurements of your visual behavior. A lens personalized to you by an Essilor expert. Discover Verilux XR Track and enjoy instantly sharp vision in motion and seamless transitions from near to far. Find your local Essilor expert today at Essilor.com.
Where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Patasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
We are.
Now, I know we had to go for a break. We're back now. So I've got to ask, Governor, with your law background, Rabbi with your law background, you went to law school. Does the fact that this guy was abusing his wife have anything to do with the case against him, with the deportation? Is it relevant?
Reverend, as usual, you've read between the lines, and I would have to say, technically, you're right. In other words, this is a domestic issue. He wasn't arrested for it.
She brought no charges against him.
And I would say you're right. What I would have done if I was president is I would have sent a judge to El Salvador to have a hearing about this guy, which he would have won because he was deported. We won't say it's illegally, but he was not supposed to be deported. Now he comes back to, his home state or city or whatever, and the minute he gets off the plane, I'd have him arrested for domestic abuse. Because the problem with his assaulting his wife and it not affecting the other things he did, as I see it, is a moral crisis, not a legal one.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's a civil. Civil issue.
Do you think moral issues matter anymore in campaigns when we select leaders? Do you think morality comes into the picture anymore?
I think that it did until candidate Trump in 2016 had that interview with Bush. What was his name?
Billy Bush. Yeah,
Billy Bush.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that he said and the things that went on there, I thought he was a dead duck the first week of October. Somehow, some way, he said, that was locker room talk or whatever it was, and he won the election that year. That was when I thought that the moral issues swarming around candidates had been reduced considerably. And so, now, people have done a whole lot of things, and their supporters are like, oh, well, look, he had a bad day, that kind of thing. But I think as a country, as a nation of people who are fair-minded, and I think who believe in some sort of higher power, that we have to see that, we have to look at it disdainfully. How did we get here?
Yeah, and that's an unfortunate thing because morals serve the purpose, both personal and collective purposes, moralities and morals. And when we downgrade our values and lower our standards morally, our nation, our society is in line for decay. I mean, what do we do? It affects social cohesion, stability, justice, fairness, individual integrity, character. All those things come into play when we lower our moral standards.
We're in a bad place as faith leaders when morality becomes insignificant. I mean, what have we been talking about throughout our lives, on the pulpit, off the pulpit? There's got to be a moral code. There has to be, a moral compass. When that goes out the window, what do we say? Do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Do we throw that whole issue aside?
I thought one of the unfortunate situations that came up in 2015, right before President Trump ran for his first presidency, was when Pope Francis was saying that he didn't like our policy in this country about immigration, which Trump was very negative toward it. And Trump talked about him as if another candidate had said something like this. If you want to say someone's a jerk or they don't know what they're doing, that kind of thing, you can say that to another candidate. But he showed no respect for the position of the Pope to have that point of view. All he had to say is, listen, I'm sure that this reflects the wishes of the Pope and how he feels about these things, but I have to advise the Pope that we're in such a difficult situation in our country right now, we have to head in a bit of a different direction. He could have gotten out of it, but he couldn't resist insulting someone, and he went to the apex of leadership to do it.
And isn't that the problem? Because morals are our foundational principles. They guide human behavior. We have to have this idea of right and wrong shaping our decisions, our actions, our interactions in society. I'm concerned. I'm glad we're having this kind of conversation because on the ground, I think that our population understands the need for moral standards, but somehow we've been willing to put it aside for political power.
And I must say, for fear of retribution, that this is not just people who happen to be registered Republican or have a conservative ideology. There is just as much. I mean, I thought that the conduct of the people who were supporting the gentleman who wound up in El Salvador, some of the things they said in support of him were outrageous, and it's hard to win a case or win the public's trust saying things like that really would have no place, or if the other side said it, they would be frothing at the mouth to criticize them.
Governor, I want to ask you something. You know about the many, many protests on campus, particularly anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, pro-death of Jews. Why is it that a number of people, and I would say Democrats, were invisible, were not to be heard, seen on those campuses? Wouldn't it make sense when kids are under attack, when kids are being assaulted, when they're denied access to classrooms, all the violations, of their civil rights? wouldn't you expect both parties to stand there?
I compare it to the people who lived in the Deep South in the late 50s and 60s who stood by and allowed things to go on during the civil rights movement that should never, that they should never have ignored or treated a situation that was that important. I have a real, I went to Columbia University, and Columbia University, springtime is protest time. It can be over the war in Vietnam, the lavatories in the dorm rooms. It could be an important issue or just no issue at all. But it's almost like your degree from Columbia allows you to have had these demonstrations about things. Now, what is bothering me is, where is this hatred coming from? Where is this predilection for violence coming from? Where's it coming from? And it seems to me, after October 7th, the fact that there were protests about what the Israelis did after October 7th, when you're telling me that if somebody invaded your house and killed family members and you had a gun, you wouldn't go after them? I don't understand it. And the in a lot of ways, what went on in the South was really a reflection of years of segregation. Once they kind of got, some of the Southerners to realize we're not doing that anymore, you don't hear about that kind of stuff going on in the Deep South anymore. But this is a different situation. I feel like this could go on forever if we don't find a way to teach our young people how to disagree without becoming violent, hateful, all the things that were done to the people who were marching, and some of the people who were on that campus were not totally in sync with the view of that administration or even our United States government, and they themselves got attacked because the people who were doing it didn't know the difference.
Governor, keep in mind the City Council of New York couldn't find the moral strength to condemn Hamas for what happened October 7th.
Well, I'll do it for them.
But it's a pretty sad commentary on, lack of leadership, lack of courage. I don't know. I don't even think it takes much courage, does it, to condemn what happened October 7th? That's something that should be a natural reaction?
I know that I've spoken out on it a lot. No one has confronted me personally about what I said. So that's the good news.
Right.
The bad news is that there are others who've drawn a furious reaction for doing that, and that's reprehensible.
How much, Governor, do you think the people who were involved in these protests are sincerely concerned about the issue as opposed to just being a part of something?
I think in the beginning, it was being a part of something. It's like I was saying, it's the annual protest period at Columbia. It starts right after spring break. But what I think happened is because of the reaction to it, it then started to harden the viewpoints of some of the students and the outside agitators who were helping them. One thing I would like to say about the White House coming down on Columbia, they were right. They were right. But I think what they kind of had to understand was that the school was used to these types of protests. You didn't have them going to the extent that they did this time. And frankly, they didn't think it would happen, but it did.
We've come to the end of the program. Governor, I do see that following your, being a student at Columbia, you really become very, very discriminatory in selection. You went to Brooklyn Law School.
No, I went to Hofstra.
You went to Hofstra?
I went to Hofstra.
I heard you went to Brooklyn. All right. Well, that's it. That's a good school. It's a very good school.
No, but I'll take the degree if they'll give it to me.
Rev, thank you. Great program today, and always with Governor Paterson. We listen and learn from him.
Great conversation always, Rabbi, and we hope you, our listening audience, have been enriched, educated in the process as well, and feel that, there's something for you to do about what you heard. Till next time, right here on Red Apple Radio Network's The Rev and The Rabbi. Be well. God bless.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.